We heard about these ideas about space mining and all this kind of stuff. It's just really hard to get to.
Yeah. I don't know. Is it easy to like land on a
Have you seen the movie Armageddon? they landed on there, no problem. You know?
I've never had almost 20 years in business. I've never seen so many people asking me about one company.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
One IPO. Traditionally, if you compare salaries of SpaceX people versus other tech companies, they don't make as much.
They're much lower.
Much lower?
Yeah. For the incredible work that they're doing,
Correct.
They've been much lower. But they are hopefully going to be rewarded now. 30%.
So if the stars align, it would be June 12th.
Stop it, dude. We have to stop this. This is going to become the dad joke episode where Alex is going to have to title this SpaceX and the dad jokes. Please remember that nothing we say here should be taken as personal advice. The conversation is for entertainment purposes only. If you have questions about your financial situation, please talk to a licensed financial advisor. All right, welcome to another episode of Future Money, where we talk about the investments of the future.
That would make us money.
All right.
Welcome back. We just came back from Memorial Day. It's summertime in LA.
It's actually not summertime yet.
It is. Oh, hey, man. You gotta get along with this, dude.
If we're gonna talk about SpaceX, they're gonna be mad that we don't know that the summer solstice is still almost a month away.
What is it, June 21st?
June 21st, usually, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But yes, the unofficial start of summer.
Yeah.
So it was, 3-day weekends. But now we're back.
Yeah.
And we got something really exciting to talk about.
Yeah, which is?
We got the S-1, the filing, the official IPO filing from SpaceX.
Yeah.
What we've all been waiting for.
Yeah.
We got a lot of answers, but also still a lot of questions.
Yeah. Honestly, the biggest story, I think, in technology, Elon has done it again.
Yeah.
The S-1 obviously is the filing for the IPO for SpaceX. Dropped last week on Wednesday. And it was probably the best looking S-1 I've ever seen. The pictures
the pictures were so good. Yeah. Also, it was 250 pages.
280.
277 pages, exactly. Technically.
Yeah.
But wow, it was a lot of reading.
Someone said it was like longer than The Great Gatsby.
Yeah. That's a great book, by the way. It was less, as much as I love SpaceX, it was slightly less entertaining reading the S-1 than The Great Gatsby.
Yeah. I mean, for us, we've been so into the Elon sphere per se. It's really interesting. Obviously, we have a lot of clients there, understanding the business. Let's talk a little bit about the business. What do you think?
I mean, it's kind of exactly what we thought, right? So what we learned in the S-1 filing, which we didn't know before, is we've talked about this. Starlink is the cash cow at SpaceX right now. That is where all the money is coming from. Yep. So in essence, I kind of liken it to Google, where like search, right?
Starlink is internet through satellites, basically, right?
Yes.
If you don't know what that
global internet, kind of works anywhere.
Yep.
And it's
works
such a
great at Burning Man.
Yes, I'm sure it does. Or, Ross talks about how he used it when the Palisades fire happened last year and there was no infrastructure. So it is an amazing
People don't
product.
realize, like, most of the world doesn't have access to internet.
To regular, broadband internet like we do. We take it for granted, when you live in a city.
I mean, we have it here in the office as our backup internet, right?
For sure.
We're in Santa Monica. We have 1 gig. We have great internet, but we have this backup.
For sure. So, I mean, it's kind of like Google, right? Where like search powers, they use the money from search to pay for everything else.
Yeah. So the numbers there are, Starlink is basically generating almost $14 billion in revenue, right? And growing quite a bit, right? 65% margins, right? Very, very good business.
Yeah.
Currently only 10 million subscribers.
Yeah, so there could be a lot. They could get a lot more.
Could be hundreds of millions,
right?
Yeah,
right? So if you 10x that, I mean,
assuming you have capacity.
I mean, why wouldn't you? Just keep
You just need more satellites.
Just keep launching more satellites. I thought isn't that what SpaceX is?
Yeah. So go back. So we got Starlink, then what?
The different businesses?
Yeah.
So we have Starlink, we have their shuttle business, right? In general, their launch business, which, right? Obviously Starlink is part of that because you need the shuttle to Starlink to do that.
So you got to launch those satellites to have the Starlink service.
Yeah,
75% of all launches that SpaceX does are for Starlink satellites.
Yeah, which makes sense,
right?
Because it's like thousands of satellites up there,
low orbit satellites, right? So that's really fascinating, right?
Yeah, and and then we have these sort of future businesses, right, that we're going to talk about, which is number one, the Mars colonization, which is actually in the original manifesto at SpaceX and the original sort of plan. that was the whole point of starting SpaceX, is to become a multi.
You're saying we're going to Mars.
I'm saying we are going to Mars at some point.
Right. Okay.
When that point is a totally different discussion.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, if you read the Elon biographies, if you read the any stuff about SpaceX, that was their original goal when they started the company, is to become a multi-planetary species.
And by the way, like, as we know, all of SpaceX people are mission driven. I mean,
for sure,
they show up to work every morning because they believe in this. Yeah, they're doing this, right?
Yeah. And again, as our resident space nerd, I truly believe that this is going to happen at some point. And, I was actually having a whole conversation with Ross about this last year. He's a skeptic. Last week, he's a skeptic about Mars. And while I would not want to live on Mars personally, absolutely not. Why would anyone want to move there? It's like worse than the worst condition we have on Earth.
Do you think some of our clients would want to move there?
No. There are a large group.
It doesn't look very hospitable.
It is. First of all, currently it is inhospitable. There's no atmosphere. There's only frozen water deep underneath.
One of my clients builds spacesuits.
Yeah, mine too. Actually,
it's pretty amazing.
I wonder if they know each other.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
How many people are building spacesuits?
Yeah,
SpaceX.
I mean, probably a decent amount. But it's inhospitable right now. But somebody's got to go there and terraform it, and create an atmosphere and do all that Martian stuff like from the movie.
And it's also it takes a long time to get there.
It sure does. If you're going there, it's a one-way trip now.
Right, it's a one-way trip.
Right,
like
so you have to be. But there's a list.
So you
of
go and you
that,
stay. You can't come back.
That's what this is. You're like your job is like. If we think about this, right, it sounds crazy to create this as an analogy, but like if you think about like Columbus or Magellan or Vasco da Gama doing these they didn't circumnavigate the world. They had no idea where they were going or what they where they were going to end up.
They thought the air was flat. Actually,
what's funny? Like most of the people at that time did not think the Earth was flat. It's actually kind of a myth. In fact, they've known the Earth was round since like the Greek. The Hellenistic period in Greece was like 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of people who knew the Earth wasn't
people
flat.
that think Earth is flat today.
Correct. And there were more of them then, but there unfortunately is still some today.
Exactly.
But I kind of think of it like that, right? If let's just use Columbus, even though he's not the best example, but right, they didn't know where they were going to end up. They didn't know it was going to end up, in the Bahamas and the Hispaniola and creating, finding these whole civilizations. And that's kind of what Mars is today. Like it sounds insane, but I'm sure in 1300, it sounded insane that somebody was going to go to this world that nobody knew existed.
Yeah. So that's the spacefaring business, which we don't know how much that's going to generate.
That's a long time away. I think the bottom line is like what we understand now. Like SpaceX is essentially like we could think of it almost like a telecom company at this point. That does space also.
Oh, that's rough, man.
Listen, they have
it SpaceX AT&T?
No, where they're making their money, right? For better or worse, like everyone can argue about this, but it's very clear. The numbers are showing is Starlink is where they're making their money.
Yeah.
And you can, I was going to use the word moonshot, but that's actually a little bit too on the nose to call these a moonshot.
Puns, dude.
But the idea that we're going to have data centers in space, that's the next thing. That's really the ultimate ambition here, right?
Yep.
Is for SpaceX to really become an AI and robotics delivery system for.
And I think that's the brilliance of this S-1 offering is how they kind of put all these businesses together where Starlink funds the basically the launch business, which by itself is able to build these data centers in space, which theoretically are cheaper to run because there's more solar power up there.
There's more solar power. It's cold as hell in space, so you don't need cooling systems.
Yeah, exactly.
Gravity and like wind erosion doesn't happen as much, so like the data centers theoretically won't break down as much.
And then you bring that all back through Starlink because you can transmit the data back into Earth, right? So if you think about it, this is genius. Now, is it easy to do this?
No. I mean, in the S1, they said that they were going to have a data center in space by 2028.
Yeah.
That seems ambitious.
Yeah. Elon Musk is amazing. you gotta love, regardless of what you think about Elon, he sets these really
Ambitious is not even a good enough word
I was
to
going to
talk
say
about.
astronomical. Is that
Yeah.
too much of a punny?
We're doing now. We got a moonshot and an astronomical ambition. all
Goals,
in the
right?
same thing.
Goals.
Yeah.
And if they fall like 50% or 20% from what those goals are,
Yeah.
we've already accomplished
That's
more
the
than
old shoot for the
for the
for the
moon.
moon. If you miss, you land on the stars.
Yeah.
There's too many like puns for space here, and
Right.
excuse us. We don't mean to do them. Actually, they're just kind of coming.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like when Elon does something, Elon does not like to hear the phrase "you can't do this."
Right.
He and for better or worse, he pushes people to the brink to get the best out of what humanity can actually
That's
offer.
exactly it.
Right. And sometimes he pushes them to the point where they snap.
Yeah.
And sometimes he creates, right?
Sometimes, like, do you know anybody who worked for Elon for more than 5 years?
I do actually. I know people who have worked for him for 10 and
Yeah.
15 years even. And, everyone
Yeah.
says the same thing. Like, he's an incredible human being with incredible ambition.
Yeah.
But he can work you into a pulp.
Yeah. No, that's exactly it.
And again, like, this idea of data centers in space, I think, is a great idea.
Starting to catch on, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's funny because we heard about these ideas about space mining and all this kind of stuff back in 2017, 18.
Yeah.
And we're like, man,
It is true though. Like a lot of the minerals that we value tremendously here on Earth, like the rare earth stuff and all, that's like abundant in space.
For sure.
It's just really hard to get to.
It's just really hard to get to.
Yeah.
You got to spend a lot of money getting there.
I don't know. Is it easy to like land on a I don't know.
Have you seen the movie Armageddon? they landed on there, no problem.
They landed on there, no problem.
No, it is
The
not.
Martian. That's the one with Matt Damon.
I already mentioned that.
That's so good.
That's the one where they're on Mars, but not on an asteroid. But yes, it's going to take a long time for those businesses to come to fruition and definitely to be profitable at any point. But it's very clear from the S-1 filing that they're using funds from Starlink, from the IPO, from all this up to fund the data center ambitions.
Yeah.
That's what this is.
So let's bring it back to Earth.
Okay. Really? Let's bring this back there. Let's have a gravity pun in here somewhere.
Yeah.
Beware of gravity of the.
So, like, talk about the IPO.
Yes.
We have a date, June 12th, I think, is the date.
Well, we don't officially have a date. We have
That's Elon's birthday, I guess.
We have a theoretical date that everyone seems to think is the right date.
Maybe. Okay. There's a few things we need to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay. Which a lot of people are not talking about. One is the lockup period.
Yes.
Okay. I know you've done a lot of deep dive into that.
Yep.
We're obviously talking through this.
Yeah.
What's a lockup? How is it going to work for S1 for SpaceX?
So, we've talked about lockups in general before, right?
Yeah.
For most companies, the insiders are locked up for usually 6 months.
Right.
In the S1 filing of SpaceX, there's the first time I've actually seen these like tiered lockup things.
Yep.
So basically, the first thing is Elon and investors. So not employees.
Yep.
Elon and investors, and this is presumably the people who have invested in SpaceX for a long time, private equity, etc., are locked up for 366 days. Right. So a little over 1 full year.
So you think this is it's not very clear? Is that the VCs and all that?
They didn't make it clear, but when they say the word investors and they specifically they did not use the word insiders or employees or things like that. They use the word investors. So I'm going to presume that's what they mean.
Okay.
But I don't know for sure, obviously.
Okay.
And then if you're an employee, most likely you have the 180-day lockup.
Right.
But there's a caveat this time for possibly having an earlier liquidity event for our clients who are at SpaceX, for example.
Right.
And that is after the earnings of the first quarter.
Yep.
They can release 20% of the shares.
Whatever vested.
20% if they hit a certain number. Now, we don't know what that number is yet.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what's missing in our S1. We don't have a technical date where they are going public.
Yeah.
We don't have a technical price at which they're going public.
But that's normal, right? Like
that's normal as they're going through this. Sometimes we'll have a date by this point, like official date.
Yeah.
But yes, it is normal.
Yeah.
And then there's up to 30%.
So if the stars align, it'd be June 12th.
Stop it, dude. We have to stop this. This is going to become the dad joke episode where Alex is going to have to entitle this SpaceX and the dad jokes. Yes, if the stars align. then there will be access to liquidity for employees earlier. And it's unclear when the first earnings is. That could be a month in, or that could be 4 months in, depending on how they structure sort of the first earnings call.
So there is a couple things there. Let's talk about the size of this, because the size is really amazing, right?
Of the IPO itself.
Yeah, $75 billion that they're trying to raise, right?
Yeah.
That is a massive number.
$75 billion on a theoretical $1.75 trillion valuation.
Right.
So if you think about the absolute numbers, they're huge. But what isn't huge is the percent of the shares that are actually being unlocked.
So is it 2?
It's less than 5%.
Yeah.
Right. So in general, right, if it was
this is old game that's been playing a long time ago, since the early 2000s, right? Which is you basically release just a few amount of shares.
I mean, this is less than usual.
Yeah.
Usually it's like 10, maybe up to 20. But 10 is kind of the standard. I mean, this is less than 5 now, depending on the IPO price. And if the IPO ends up going at $2 trillion, right, you're talking, 3 to 4%. So what that does is, right, this is economics 101.
Yep.
What that does is you release a very small amount of shares. Obviously, there's incredible hype around the stock. And,
I've never had, almost 20 years in business, I've never seen so many people asking me about one company.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
Or one IPO.
And for better or worse, and we'll talk about, the numbers and metrics and what that actually means, but a lot of hype, very little share, high demand, low supply.
Right.
Most likely means the stock's going to get bid up.
Yeah, so a nice setup. All the investment banks are involved in this.
They're very excited. Yeah, Goldman's lead.
Yeah,
right. But they're all in.
They're all in. I mean, everyone has incentive for the stock to go up, right?
Correct.
Nasdaq is into. We'll talk about that in a little bit because that's really interesting. But basically, very low supply. The valuation to me is really the biggest problem, right? You have $1.75 trillion valuation, right? When we invest in Tesla, 2013, the company was $20 billion.
Correct.
That's why we've done so well going up, You're investing in a company that is $1.75 trillion today.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, it might go up to 2+ once it's all said and done.
Because there is an Elon premium.
Correct.
Right? But this
much like at Tesla, by the way. Right, if you do a sum of the parts on the business, both at Tesla and at SpaceX, right, the Elon premium, it turns out, is about $1 trillion.
Yeah. And this is kind of when our advisors had, right, saying, this is what we have to tell to our clients. Yeah, it's exciting. Yeah, I want to tell my friends that I own SpaceX because I'm cool. But at the end of the day, if I'm buying a business at $2 trillion, that's making $20 billion in revenue.
So 100 times revenue, right? That's a very, very large metric. And this is not to say that SpaceX's ambitions are not real and what they're going to accomplish. But if you think about when you value companies, what we do, right, is we say, like, you could do like a discounted cash flow. Like, how much money are they going to make in the future? And then you kind of work your way backwards and say, when am I going to essentially earn my money back? Per se? That math doesn't work here, but you're just kind of like hoping.
Yeah.
Right. So 100 times revenue is about as rich a valuation as you're going to get in a company.
100%.
Short of being a biotech that might have a drug that drops at some point. But so, and you're talking $2 trillion, right? So for SpaceX to go from $2 trillion to $4 and $8 trillion, right? Like, think of either they have to expand and get even more overvalued, or they have to grow their business by an insane amount of money. And traditionally, this is reserved for lower capital intensive businesses, right? If you're going to get a very high premium for those shares, you have to be able to scale the business up real quick with
like
not a lot of
software,
correct,
things like that. Yeah.
Correct. But that is not what SpaceX is.
Yeah.
Right? They're a capital intensive business.
Yeah. And that's why they have to raise all this money, right? $75 billion. By the way, congrats. Starlink flew on Friday.
Yes.
That was a pretty fascinating, amazing,
so great
test, and then Starship is like the biggest spaceship ever made.
I mean, it's probably the biggest ambition of a project that has happened to go outside of outside of Earth.
Right, and it's the timing obviously is not coincidence, right?
Of
like,
course.
you know what I mean? Like, do the S-1, do start, you know what I mean?
It could have gone the other way though, right? It could have gone horribly wrong.
That's how Elon does it, man.
He's a showman. Like, he does not shy away from creating like effects around. That's why there is this Elon effect, because he knows how to spin everything.
Guy
into
can
a
make
way.
money, man.
Yeah.
So to add another point, which I don't think a lot of people are talking about, is the Nasdaq rule.
Yeah.
So getting this IPO for every investment bank is very profitable. That's why you see like literally 8 investment banks on the S1, with Goldman being the lead. The investment banks were going to make between 5 and 7% of the IPO, right? So if you raise $75 billion, you run the numbers, right?
Yeah.
We're talking billions in fees,
Yeah.
right? So that's one. Nasdaq also profits from this, of having the IPO. But Nasdaq did something called the FAST rule. So the FAST rule is the top 40 companies in the Nasdaq 100 market cap can actually be added to the Nasdaq index faster than their normal rules, which
Correct.
usually are around profitability, revenues, and things
6
like that.
months and all
Correct.
that. And that faster time is way faster.
Way faster. 15 days.
15 days faster.
Yeah.
So like 15 days ago, like 2 weeks ago, like nothing is.
It's coincident that this happened before Nasdaq gets the SpaceX IPO, but it's also very coincidence. Why is this important? Because there is hundreds of billions of funds that track in the Nasdaq index. So if a company gets added to the Nasdaq index, those funds have to buy the stock.
To buy it, exactly.
So you're going to have more demand for that stock, right? So again, this is how the piping of the markets work, right? But what happened is, if you look at if you read between the lines, now you have the faster lookup, right? If SpaceX gets added to the Nasdaq, that means they need more shares, right?
Yeah.
To be added, because there's going to be more demand for the for the shares. And guess what? Employees who are can sell earlier, so they can satisfy that need.
The Nasdaq could pick
brilliant.
them up. The Nasdaq 100 could pick them up.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's really set up for a way that and you know, we talk with a lot of SpaceX employees. These people have worked for SpaceX for a long time.
Yep.
Traditionally, if you compared earnings, like salaries of SpaceX people versus other tech companies, they don't make as much.
They're much lower.
Much lower.
Yeah. For the incredible work that they're doing, they've been much lower. But they are hopefully going to be rewarded now.
Correct. But they own a ton of stock. So this is an opportunity for them to get liquidity. So a lot of our clients will be taking out liquidity, right? Yeah. So really interesting to understand the piping and how these things work. These guys are very smart. All the investment banks, the way they set it up. And it's really cooked in a way for the stock to go up,
which is great. You know what I mean? Like at least for the shorter to midterm, right?
Correct.
So the game when a company goes public is, can the stock hold up long enough before and right after the lockup, right? Because generally, we've talked about this in the past. Generally, what you see when a company goes public is a lot of demand with a small amount of float. Even more so than ever on this IPO. The stock goes public. They continue to bid it up. By the time the public actually gets access to the stock, sometimes it's up 20, 30, 50, even 100%. We saw it with Cerebras 2 weeks ago that went public, right? The stock doubled in a day.
Yeah. And then it's been going down
It's been going down since. Because that's generally the trend that happens. And then once the lockup happens, there's more shares. Right, this is the opposite effect of supply and demand. Right, supply is now much higher. Demand is maybe the same, maybe lower, maybe even a little higher.
And also, I think there's also another aspect of this, which is SpaceX is allocating up to 30% of the new shares to retail investors.
To retail investors, exactly.
Elon and his team have always been pro retail investors. We know a lot
because they're part of the Elon army, basically.
Correct.
The retail investor, right? That was part of Tesla's thing when we were big investors in Tesla. Is the institutions were definitely not on our side.
Right.
The retail investors were on our side at that time, right? The people who bought Tesla and believed in the story and the company and what they were selling were the retail.
Arguably, retail investors, I'm not going to say that they're less sophisticated. They're just a little bit more
emotional about their
emotional, but also don't really look at the metrics as closely.
That's what I meant when I say emotional. Like they invest with their hearts.
Correct.
Most of the
Institutional
time,
investors are a little bit more
with their brains, and we're kind of in the middle, right? Like we invest like institutions, but we deal with a lot of clients.
Yep.
So we know how we have to sort of bridge that gap of heart and mind together. And,
Yep.
and we kind of use both of them.
Yep.
And it's important because the retail investors are very excited about
Yep.
this. Everyone's hearing about it. That's not necessarily a good thing
Yeah.
that everyone is excited about this one stock, because that may or may not translate into future earnings.
Boo.
So it's important to just know what you're doing and
Yeah.
have a plan in place, which we always say.
Yeah.
And we talked about there's a lot of different strategies to hedge, to diversify once you get the opportunity to do
Yeah.
that. And people should take the opportunity to
And
do that.
listen, I'll say something a bit controversial, which is we always learned we're not here just to tell you no all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oftentimes, some clients want to do some stuff. We may want
Yeah.
to do some stuff that doesn't really, that doesn't really stay within the realm of like what a financial advisor
Sure.
should do, right? Because you're excited about something. You
Mhm.
care, like, oh, I want to really be involved with this SpaceX, no matter what the valuation is. I'm not here to tell you no. I'll tell you what the risks are.
Yeah,
And you
I'm here
have
to
to-
tell you. Like,
yeah, the
my
risk-
job is to give you advice.
That's
right?
exactly it.
Right.
And so that's the thing that was going on.
I think like, again, everyone has to be cautious. But again, if you are a SpaceX employee and you spent 10 years, 8 years, 5 years, whatever the amount of time, and you have this windfall now,
Mhm.
it's important to have an idea of what you're actually going to do with this money now. What is your overall strategy going forward?
Yeah.
Is that to diversify just right away, sell some stuff?
I think that's what it gets excited for us
Yeah.
too, right? There's a lot of opportunities, and we talk to a lot of clients. And this is not just to SpaceX, right? To Anthropic, all of the new IPOs coming up,
Yeah.
right? How do you diversify a concentrated stock position?
Yeah.
What strategies can you use? Is it maybe some direct indexing? Is it short and long strategy?
Yeah.
What there's a lot of things that we can think about. Is it trust? Is it class?
Yeah, there's a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
You talk about class, like charitable
Mhm.
trust. That's something that people don't really think
Yeah.
about. Long, short strategies where you can get tax losses to offset your
Yeah.
gains. Hedging, right? Collars and put strategies.
Mm.
There are so many options that you can use,
Yeah.
right? In the end, you're deferring taxes,
Yeah.
right?
You're not. Yeah.
You're not avoiding taxes, but everything is a tax deferral strategy, whether it's an IRA or
Yeah.
you're doing. But like that, the idea is that you're actually getting something, right?
Yeah.
You're making sure you take some off the table. That is something I will tell most of my clients. You should take something off the table. I don't
Yeah.
know what that number is, the right number for you. I generally say take 20%, sort of as a number.
It's
like
amazing that you can sell 20% up to your.
when you have chance, when you have a chance to
Yeah.
take something off the table. Some people want to take more. Some people will just be all in. But it's
Yeah.
important, right? Like if you made it to here, you should ultimately come out with something, regardless of what happens to the company.
Or
And
is
you're-
it a bird in the hand?
A bird in the hand.
Yeah.
And again, we've found this with Tesla before. Like you feel like you're betraying the cause if you're
Yeah.
selling shares. That's not the case.
Yeah.
Like you're not betraying a cause.
And the other thing is, public markets are just a different animal, a different beast, right? You are, when your stock is publicly traded and there is any bad news, a rocket
Correct.
blows up,
Right.
some deal doesn't go through or whatever negative news, the stock can go down 20-30%. In private, that doesn't happen, right?
Correct.
And
You-
most people haven't really been used to that.
Correct.
So
You've watched your stock go up 20, 25%, 30% a year,
Mhm.
sometimes 50% in a year, and a year like this one, with no volatility.
right.
And we talk a lot about this, about behavioral finance, right?
Mhm.
You're sitting there, you've never seen your stock go down in value.
Yeah.
And Starship, something happens with Starship and it blows up on the run, on the launch pad.
Yeah.
Right?
By the way, high probability of that happening all the time.
Yeah.
You're right.
And when you're a private company, you can call that a learning experience, which they do at SpaceX all the time,
Yeah.
right? And that's part of the process of launching rockets. It's just
Right.
it's like almost like when you're in retail, you expect to get a certain amount
That's
stolen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's part of the business. But if that happens in a public market,
Yeah.
you could see a 20 to 30% correction in a day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And whether that comes back or not remains to be seen. But the toll it takes on people financial or
Yeah.
psychologically, not just financially, is intense. And I've seen this many times now with clients who are going public. They're very gung ho when things are going well, and then when something goes wrong, and maybe it was worth, I had 5 million, now it's 3 million, right? Like that changes your psychology if you haven't had to deal with it before.
Yeah, I'm looking at some charts here, and Starlink had 122 launches just in 2025.
That's so many launches. I think just a couple of those don't go right.
80% of basically anything that's launched into space is done by SpaceX, right? So I think investors have to get used to this and have to understand and be a little bit more aware of what that means.
Yeah. And know that high valuations mean higher volatility. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
If things go right, they can go up a lot, but if things go wrong, they can go down really quickly.
Yeah.
And again, this is not about SpaceX. We take their name out and we say company, I was going to say X, but that doesn't work with this. Company Z goes public. They miss their numbers by a penny, right? Their earnings call. 100 times revenue company could get cut in half,
right?
And that would still be an expensive stock,
right?
That's the part that people need to wrap their heads around, and that's part of what we're here to talk to clients about. Is we're not here to tell you that SpaceX is a bad company. Everyone knows it's a great company.
Yeah.
And the market knows it's a great company, which is why it's getting that kind of valuation.
Yeah. And also, how about this stigma around confidentiality, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, as a private company, everyone is like trying to figure out what's going on, what business does what, and so forth. But now you're a private company, you have 10Qs and 10Ks and annual reports and quarterly reports and so forth.
It's all in the open,
It's all out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And Elon, right, for better or worse, Elon does something good, bad, crazy, like
there's always that risk.
We know we've seen this in the past. We've seen this, Elon, go after a random diver about something. We've seen the Trump era Elon. We've seen a lot of different things. And however you feel about it politically and whatever, that's not what I'm talking about. My point is that his actions, because he is the company.
He's the biggest risk, man. He's the biggest risk for the company.
And I think we haven't talked about this yet. Elon Musk there's two share classes at SpaceX. We haven't talked about this, which is very important. There's a Class A and a Class B. The Class A shares are normal, right? Voting, everyone has the same votes.
Talking about company governance.
Yes.
Okay.
The Class B shares have 10-to-1 voting rights.
Correct.
So, for all intents and purposes, Elon Musk controls 85% of this company. So, they ride or die with Elon.
Right.
Whatever he does.
Yeah. If you may recall, he kind of did not have that with Tesla.
Yeah.
And he got sued. There was one person with 8 shares that did this class action lawsuit in Delaware. So they basically learned from all that episode. So now he's got controlling shares. He controls the board.
Yeah.
You
don't need an independent board, right?
No independent board.
Right.
Yep.
So it's now classified as a controlled company. And it's important to note that because generally speaking, in a board, you have to hire independent board members to essentially try to offset the sort of power dynamic within the corporate structure.
Someone to look at shareholders' rights, right?
Right. It's no different than, right, you have a president, you don't want to have 100% of the people in Senate being, if Trump's president, you don't
Different
want 100% being, Republicans, right? You got to have some Democrats, you got to have some independents in there to mix the pot. Well, we hope you don't want 100% of the same type of person.
Right.
But in a controlled company, he doesn't need to do that now. So for all intents and purposes, he controls the company.
And he can only do that in Texas, by the way. He can't do that in Delaware, right?
So you can't do that in Delaware. That's why they've moved their corporate governance to Texas because they're much less shareholder friendly, I assume, but more.
And also, you can't. I saw something that was very unique. You cannot have class action unless you have 3% of the shares.
Yeah.
So, like, you have to be a massive shareholder in order for you to be able to.
So it would have to come from one of the big investors outside of Elon.
Yeah. It's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Invest at your own risk, basically.
And that's the thing, right? So I think, I think we covered a lot of the big points about the IPO. Oh, the last point we didn't mention is when we talk about ambitions, again, for better or worse, like you gotta appreciate the chutzpah, as my people would say, from Elon. Like, Elon says that the total addressable market for SpaceX is $28.5 trillion. Okay?
Trillion.
Like, we're just throwing numbers out. It's like, that's the total addressable market of space / AI / robotics.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about XAI because it's
We're not. Well, XAI is, they took on a lot of debt to actually bring on the XAI thing. But to their credit and to the positive spin here is there's this deal with Anthropic now.
correct.
Right? So Anthropic, which is dying for, compute capacity essentially because so many people want to use Claude now.
Yeah,
They are leasing space, quote unquote. They are leasing compute from
Colossus.
Claude, from Colossus, right? And in exchange for that, it's giving SpaceX $1.5 billion in revenue every
month. Yeah,
right?
yeah. So basically, XAI and has built this massive data center in Tennessee called Colossus. And frankly, Grok hasn't really worked out that well.
Right.
So nobody is using their chat box per se, unless you're on Twitter or X.
Yeah.
So they have this excess capacity, and I think this is like kind of almost proving the model, which is we're gonna build a bunch of compute, and we can either use it ourselves.
Somebody's
or we
gonna
can
use
sell
it.
Yeah, someone.
It's like digital real estate now, right?
Correct.
So for all intents and purposes, XAI SpaceX is now a digital landlord to Anthropic.
Yeah.
And because, when this sort of arms race for AI started, OpenAI spent a ton of money just buying compute in the beginning.
Yeah, and
Anthropic was a little bit later to the game, so they sort of ran out. And because they had such a huge influx in such a short period of time over the last few months, they're short.
Yeah.
And if they want, and people were complaining that Claude was going down, that they kept saying errors and all this kind of stuff, or the adaptive 4.7 was weird because it only gave you compute at certain times. That's hopefully going to solve that for them. But I think
what's
out a
real,
lot of money.
What's real is we need a lot of compute.
Yeah.
And I think Elon and SpaceX is coming in with the rescue plan.
Yeah.
Is it going to happen in next year? Probably not, but hopefully.
No, but this is a good stopgap. Like, right, they took on a lot of debt to bring in XAI into the SpaceX atmosphere.
Yeah.
But at least they're getting $18 billion, right? The run rate is $18 billion a year.
Yeah, and
for compute from Anthropic.
Yeah.
And it's a multi-year deal.
Yep.
Right? So they at least have cash flow coming in that will hopefully continue to help fund these other, right? As maybe it's going to fund their data center build out in space. Once again, whatever Elon says and when it happens are two very different things. But the point is that they probably will happen, a lot of them. They just might happen 5 to 10 years later than he says. Yeah,
and that's a great place to stop. Yeah. Hopefully, we confused everyone about how complicated this IPO is, but the excitement is real.
Yeah, I'm very excited. This is the largest IPO in history.
Yeah,
and they're beating Saudi Aramco by a long shot at this point. Every investment bank involved. Yeah. Every retail investor interested.
I think the saying was back in the 90s: the lower the float, the bigger the pop.
That's true, and that's
a big.
But that's part of the art behind this is like how much do people how much does the stock pop? You don't want it to pop 100% because
leaving money on the table.
Money on the table.
Right.
You don't want it to drop, but there's a lot here. There will continue to be more information that comes out over the next couple of weeks as the company goes public.
Yeah,
it's an exciting time for the employees, for us, for people who love space in general, which is me. Like I love space so much.
I mean, as a society, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is a fascinating time.
Yeah, so. I love this. Right, when I was a kid growing up, they had these Star Wars things that we used to joke about. Like the Reagan administration would talk about Star Wars. Like we're kind of in it for real now.
Yeah,
and it's awesome.
Now I'm gonna go have to watch The Martians again.
And Project Hail Mary.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet.
It's really good. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for listening, and we'll see you back in June.
Cheers.
Cheers.